Okay, let's get straight into it. So we've got King Cecil, third, spaceship I made, beginner. I want to know how to make it look more realistic, especially for the window. Okay, so let's have a look. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it into GIMP, just so I can brighten it up just a little bit more. Let's put it in curves, just so I can see the details. Yeah, okay. Yeah, just so first thing I would recommend for this is just making it a little bit brighter, maybe using two different colors, colored lights, especially, so this would be called the key light if we were using say 3-point lighting, and you want to also add a secondary light going from another angle to fill this up, which would be called the fill light. And I would be using two separate colors on it, so maybe a slight yellow and then a slight blue on the one coming down the bottom, just so we can light up this area just a little bit more. Okay, so I do like the textures and stuff that you've been using, like the normal map style stuff, but I'd just be looking into your UV maps just to make sure that they've got a nice like flow and stuff to them and they're not so random. And also just looking into maybe using a few more polygons and stuff in here, just so I can smooth a bit nicer and we don't get these harsh edges and stuff for shadows in there too. I would also put in a HDRI map around so that when you put reflection and stuff on this spaceship, it's going to have some realistic reflections of stars and everything too, just to get that nice material, like of the shiny look going on. To make it a bit more realistic, yeah, for this I'd probably add like a few more polygons too, just to give it a bit more resolution and a bit more curve, as well as putting on bloom too to make the color shine a bit more. I do like the orange that it's got. Maybe even consider putting in a little point light of the color just to give it a bit more control and a bit more intensity if you feel like that's needed. And then I would be looking into maybe a slight use of depth of field just to give this a bit more maybe blur on the front and back, or just on the back, give it a bit more of a sense of scale. But yeah, I really think that using your lighting and looking into the materials that you have, especially adding a bit more resolution and looking into how you use your UV maps, is going to really make it look a whole lot more realistic. But because of this render, there's just not enough information yet to really go off how to add much more detail to it until you sort of fix up those points. Especially also looking into bevels around these sort of harsher edges, just so that it's got a little bit of curve on the edge there, and it'll catch the light in a better way. But so far it's a pretty good sort of spaceship that you got going on. I just feel like if you fix up those basic things first, then set it up again and we can see what we can do with it. But nice work. Alright, now we've got codename 1C. Made this render yesterday, but I feel like it's a little boring. How can I make this render more interesting? Alright, let's have a quick look at it. So I think that if I'm just going to copy it and then put it into this, maybe what I would do is look into how you're setting up the colors and contrast and stuff first off, just to make it pop just that little bit more. Especially with composition, I would probably move this duck slightly to the left and maybe adding a few more smaller details and stuff, say in like the rocks, like little branches and stuff, because at the moment you've got quite simplistic shapes, which is really good. But I feel like you need, like how you've been trying to add in the wind effects and stuff here too, you need a few more like thinner lines so that you get that nice dynamic range of both thick and thin details, which you've definitely got in the nest and stuff here, as well as like the little on the mail and the wind. But I feel like yeah, it's just looking into how you could add those in other little sections, especially maybe in the clouds and stuff. Looking into making these clouds probably a little bit more interesting in terms of lumps, and looking also into line thickness, so that things that are closer to the camera have a thicker line and then things in the distance have a thinner line, just to get that sense of scale and everything too. But I definitely look into your like saturation and stuff, and like just to give it just that little bit more pop and stuff too. And yeah, like those are sort of the things I'd probably be looking into first just with this. ignoring the fact that some of the objects and stuff are clipping through others, but it's mostly just looking at a bit more of the full range of both detailed, like spindly objects, and then the quite round objects, which you've got a lot of, as well as looking into the depth through the line weight. Hopefully that helps. Okay, and then we've got Game Boy Douche VR military helmet. Okay, so I saw on the other photo that you've just modeled just this mask sort of shape here, and so I'll ignore the rest of the image then. So I do really like how you've generally matched the resolution and the picture, as well as I think the lighting could probably use a little bit of an improvement, just with some slight adjustments in intensity, possibly like if you look at how it's from behind with this person here, like the lighting is much more from behind and surrounding him. It's not really showing so much on the helmet. It's pretty close, but yeah, it's just those little subtle things. And not forgetting to add in just the slightest of color into the lights too, just to give it that slight amount of warmth. It does work well, but also think about how I would be casting shadows on this person's like chin here, probably a little bit more. In terms of the actual model, it's quite a really nice model. I like the design and the details as the colors as well. And yeah, like I think you've done a really good job. I think also making sure that the depth of field and stuff matches, see how, because this is quite blurred on their shirt, but just a little bit further forward, their hand is in detail, like in focus, where their face would be in focus too here. So making sure to maintain actually the depth of field level rather than what's close to it. So this would be probably a little bit more focused. But yeah, no, great job. You've done a really good job there. I think that's all I can really say for it at the moment, but nice work. All right, now we've got Dolphy 001. Is there any way to improve this simple space plane so it doesn't look so silly? Okay. So we've got a sort of shine here. All right. If we were just looking at the plane and ignoring maybe the effect so much, because the effect is nice, it's quite stylized, maybe like that sort of low poly, the minimalist sort of graphic design look. I'm pretty happy with that sort of thing. Maybe you could add a little bit of extra bloom or something in there just to give it a bit more shine. Maybe motion blur and stuff too to smooth it out, just that little bit more. But in terms of the plane, it's quite low poly, so maybe I'd look into looking into adding a material possibly to it, adding a normal map with it, but the main thing I'd be looking into is just the actual design of it. So giving a bit more of a bevel around these edges, maybe adding a bit more detail onto the sides, like think contextually about what would actually be on this ship, how would they enter the ship, if it's or aerodynamic, if they've got landing gear, what the ship's used for. This might be like obviously a spaceship style thing, so maybe looking into where there might be thrusters, where there might be like weaponry or something like that, but also just in the coloring and stuff too. So I'd be looking into once you've gotten stronger design for it, maybe just looking into a simple like two color style sort of thing over it. So maybe like blue and orange or something like that. So you can look on the color wheel, look at complementary colors or triads of colors, and just thinking and exploring about the different placements of colors as well as different types of colors that you're going to use. And then also looking into the way that you've set up the material with it. So using a bit of like a metallic like reflection and stuff on the material, and then using a skybox in the, a HDRI in the background to add some reflections and stuff to it, giving it a bit more of a realistic look, as well as maybe adding some more details in the background which can give it a bit more context and stuff to the ship. I would also maybe slightly adjust the angle of the ship to show off its silhouette a little bit more, as we can see that we've got this long part here and then a long part on the other side, But if you were just to dip the nose down slightly, it'll make those 2 points a lot more prominent, and that will also just help the shape be presented a whole lot more, rather than it sort of flattening itself. But yeah, hopefully that gives you a whole lot of things to look into to try and improve this sort of stuff. Okay, now we've got VXG MAR 1754 CR1. Lovely numbers. Okay, model part of the gravity jetpack. Feedback would be appreciated. Okay, interesting. So we've got like the white background here. It must be transparent. I'm just gonna copy this and then paste it in here, and I'll just give it a background, just so that we can just see it a bit nicer. Now, first thing is I'd probably just lighten it up just slightly, just so we can see the details just a little bit more. And so first thing I'll talk about is more just about rendering the piece to help improve the look of the model. So yeah, the first thing I would do is probably just make the lighting a little bit more intense. I would probably crop it just a little bit tighter, something like that. Maybe just a little bit less room on this side here, because when I see this, I sort of see this blue part here as like the face, and I want to have a little bit more breathing room just on the side there, and it can be a little bit tighter on, like, say, the back of the face. But I feel like this just makes it a bit tighter rather than having that unnecessary extra black parts on the sections there. The second thing is I would be using slightly colored lights in your render, where it will just add a little bit more warmth and stuff to the scene, a little bit more realism. I'll adjust the color of this slightly. It can also give it just a bit more life and stuff to it. But I see that you're probably using one source of lighting, so for this I would also have two lights. So you'd have the main light coming down, probably like a light yellow, and that'll be like what they call the key light. It'll be a bit intense. And then from the opposite direction, you'll have maybe one that's about half intensity and a blue light. So what this will do is the main light will light up all the main areas that you want to see, and then the secondary light would be called the fill light. So we've got the key light and the fill light, and it'll fill up the extra areas too that this first light didn't see. And so you'll have a nice rounded image, especially with having those two sort of colors going on. You'll see a lot more of a dynamic range, and it'll add to the actual form of the shapes. And now, next, I would say add in a bit of bloom, just to add a bit more shine and stuff to some of these areas. Add in a HDRI in the background too, to add a bit more detail to the reflections and stuff that'll be happening in this render. And then also, so looking into the textures and stuff that you use, try and use a higher resolution texture, just because this is starting to lose a lot of detail. So you can probably fix this up a little bit, like with the texture in post, but it might be better just to get a higher resolution texture or make your own. And I do like the different types of materials, like this blue like tube or whatever. The tubes look really nice with the materials that you've chosen. You obviously do have quite a good understanding of the types of materials that you want, but I think that using a higher resolution texture will really add to it a whole lot more. And now in terms of actually modeling, it seems like you're quite confident and good with how you've been modeling these shapes. Maybe just looking into a slight bevel in some of these areas that are a bit of a harsher corner. Just like, it doesn't need to be huge, but just a slight one, just so it can smooth it out a little bit more and it'll catch the light in a better way. Also looking into depth of field too, just give it might only be really subtle, but just giving it a bit more of a sense of scale. And yeah, and so you might have used a HDRI possibly on this actually, but I feel like just because of the type of material, it's not really showing up too much. You could also use a map for metallic, especially where you've got these rust marks and stuff, so that the shine only shows up on certain sections, and that could really add to the sort of deterioration of it. And with this, I'd maybe try and smooth this edge out, possibly by adding the like connecting these like rods and or whatever onto the actual material, like the model here, so it connects a bit smoother. Or adding in maybe a secondary little rim to make it look like it's been soldered on a little bit more, just so it's a smoother connection. And yeah, I would say that those are probably the things that I would say about this. It's honestly, it's a really good model, really good use of materials in some sections, like really well. But yeah, there's just a few things that you can go through and check through to improve it a whole lot more. Nice work. All right, and then we've got individual ads 7957. My donut is here. Would love to hear your feedback. Sweet. So let's just have a bit of a look first. So I really like the texture on your donut and stuff. I think that's really good. I'd probably even look into different material types, maybe like some subsurface scattering or something, or to make it so that the light bounces a bit more into it, like actual bread rather than like a sort of concrete-ish style model. And I would go the same with the icing and stuff too, but yeah, it's a really nice nice like form and stuff that you got on there. Nice whatever sprinkles they are. I'd use smoothing on these as well, and smoothing especially on these balls, just so it doesn't have the quite harsh polygons and stuff on there. Maybe just making these big sprinkles maybe just a little bit smaller. It's hard to say though, but like, 'cause that'd only be a little thing to look into. The main thing I'm going to say though is brightening it up just a little bit. So I'm going to paste it in here, and then just because I feel like that light is just not harsh enough, like not intense enough. I feel like just by brightening it up a little bit more, it can give a little bit more life to like, and actually it'll be like exposed right if we think of it in like a camera sort of setting. And also I would just give it like the slightest bit of yellow in the lighting, just to give it a bit more warmth, but not too intense. And also consider the background, because like because the background is pink, possibly consider just adjusting that to a different color, maybe just even like a white or a light blue or something like that, just so we have a bit more separation from the background, like, and the icing. But those are things to explore as well. You might find that some don't work as much as what they should, but it's something that I think you should at least just look into and explore yourself, so you can consciously make those decisions. Also maybe looking into just cropping it maybe a little bit tighter, but so far your composition is quite good with the use of capturing the shadow. Maybe just making the angle of the light a little bit more front on, so that the shadow has a little bit more of an interesting direction to it. But that's just me, that's something to explore yourself. But nice, that's a really good one, like awesome work. Now I've got PS5 tribute to my drugs. Nice, okay. Let's have a look. So first thing is I would probably just heighten the lighting a little bit, because it's just a little bit dark, just so then we can see it just a little bit more. But I do like your texturing. I like the little imperfections. The actual model is quite nice, and yeah, your use of two separate lighting colors and stuff is really good to capture that area. Maybe just dropping down this blue a little bit, like in terms of its direction and height, just so we can capture this bottom area a little bit too. Or even using an extra light to just capture it, maybe even of the same color, just to get a little bit more form around it. I'd be looking into a little bit of bloom too, just slightly, just to give a bit more of a blurred edge to this lighter section here. And your composition is quite nice, like because it's quite a simple sort of model. You've got, I think, a good amount of black around the edges. It's quite a simple piece, but I think you've done well in terms of just all the little creative decisions that you'd need to make with this. Hopefully those little finer points can give you some stuff to explore with it. And yeah, I don't think there's anything else really I can say about this at the moment. Cheers. All right, now we've got, oh, I think, is this from the same guy? Yeah, it is. All right, I'll give you some more stuff to say then. Okay, so let's open this up. So again, it's just a little bit too dark for my liking. Like, if it was just a little bit brighter, maybe like there, it's probably just a little bit nicer and a bit more rounded. But again, it's sort of up to you and your creative decisions and stuff. I would probably just consider about maybe smoothing out this person's head just a little bit more, like so it's not as harsh reflections. But that's again sort of just me. This is your own creative journey. I do really like the model and stuff that you've used. I like the proportions and everything, the types of materials that you've used. I'd be considering possibly adding in a HDRI to give some different reflections. So you might need to just explore some of that, because I would say that these two are probably the area lights that you've lit the scene with. I would, yeah, just look into other ways of giving reflections too. Look into depth of field as well to give a bit more blur of the things in the background and foreground. And add a little bit of bloom in as well, so these things shine just that little bit more. Composition is really good, and the use of colors. Maybe just I was going to say maybe add a little bit more color to your lights, but I think on the other one you've sort of shown me that you know how to sort of do that. I think that you've had a lot of creative direction and stuff with this, like a good understanding of what you were trying to achieve. And I think also maybe just giving a little bit more breathing room around this this glass here. Maybe you can even cut off a little bit from this side too, just to make it a little bit more balanced. But yeah, it's just now working into those finer details of composition to make it nice and tight. But again, yeah, hopefully that helps give you some good direction with those two pieces. Okay, now we've got Octal, Grado SR60E headphones, practicing realism and making good maps. Alright, let's have a look. Again, we could probably just, like I've been saying to the other people, we can probably just heighten this up a little bit more. Maybe it's just my computer. I don't think it is though, but just a touch more. Alright, so yeah, it seems like we've got a really good, hang on, I'll try and smooth it out a bit more. Really good sense of some nice texturing and stuff in here too. Really nice models, nice use of bevels, HDRI and everything. Nice use of depth of field. If you haven't, it might be subtle, but maybe just considering using a little bit of bloom just to give a bit more shine to some of those wider areas. And I'm not sure too, but maybe you might have used a white light in this, maybe just giving it a bit more color in the lighting, just to tie everything together a little bit more. Your composition is quite good. Maybe if I was to explore it slightly with composition, I'd be like maybe tightening it up just slightly, just to get it a little bit more balanced. But that's just an alternate way to compose it, and it should come down to you with where you want to go with the piece. You've definitely got some really nice maps and stuff in there, and use of UV maps and everything too, and like nice subtle materials that are reflective and everything in there too. Nice work. I think like there, like hopefully those sort of little points could add something to it, but yeah, it's quite a nice like sort of simple render with the one object, but good job. Okay, we've got Batman, underwater scene. So let's have a look. Again, I'm just gonna heighten this up a little bit, like in terms of brightness, just yeah, so now I can actually see what's going on. So I would probably look into adding a bit more contrast and stuff to the image, just looking into the this sort of stuff. So that's quite a nice like dragon model as well there. I think in time you're going to learn more skills and stuff in how to model what you can see in your head a whole lot more. But that's like a really nice one. I can see that you've been probably learning a lot of stuff. I would suggest to look in with your lighting using colored lights, just a little bit more, maybe like a slight blue or a green, and using two from two different angles, which will help you have a little bit more shape to your models. And I think that in terms of your modeling, you will develop your own style a whole lot more, and by watching some more like tutorials and stuff, you'll figure out what's best for you. I do like a use of depth of field, but maybe also consider using a bit of bloom as well, just to add a bit more shine. Maybe adding some particle effects in, because I would say this looks like it's under the water, like just adding little flakes of like dirt and stuff as if it was floating. Your composition is quite nice, but I think you might need to look into some other ways of composing this, just because say like this big major piece in the middle, it's hard to tell what it is, so just looking into how you angle the arms and the body and stuff and position it, where I would probably even have this dragon maybe down in this corner here with the big head over on the side here, and it could just make a nice balance, like one in the foreground, one in the background sort of image. But yeah, no, like that's really nice. Hopefully that helps give a bit of direction with some of your future works and stuff. Okay, and then we've got Robbie Rob 12. So I was helping out this guy the other day, giving a bit of feedback. So took some feedback from the last post and made some small adjustments. Additional feedback is welcome. Sweet. Okay, so from what I remember, I think you added a mountains and flowers and stuff in here, maybe adjusted some of the grass a little bit, and it's quite nice. I will just say what I said last time a little bit, if you feel like you need to add it a bit, just maybe some more details on the shoes, and maybe just slight adjustments on the hands. But I guess it depends on that sort of look that you're going for, like that sort of toy style look. And I would also consider maybe putting just one of these flowers in the background here, blurred, by making it blurred in the background, probably just there, maybe one there, and maybe like one here, maybe a purple one there. Just it'll give it a bit of a stronger sense of scale as like these sort of little things continue into the background. I do really like the mountain, how you've used it here, but I feel like it's a bit too much. I feel like it could be maybe just a little bit more subtle, but yeah, like I just feel like because it's quite dark now, it takes a bit of attention away from this character. Like it draws us into the scene a bit more, but now our focus isn't on this character as much anymore. Just something to think about, but it's good to go through these experiments and see and feel with your eyes, because yeah, it's definitely coming along with like it's definitely improved since the last time, just in those little subtle things. And so what I would also say is, see how you've got the like lump of grass here, there's like a curve of grass. I would try and just say move this lump over slightly so the lump is over here a bit more, so that we've got that curve in the corner there, and then possibly trying to do it again just a little bit more intense over here. I can sort of see it start here, but I'd want it to maybe just cover that fire just a little bit more. But that's just me. Sometimes you need to see it to know if it should be there or not. But I feel like it should just it'll give a little bit more depth if it's covered just a little bit more, and like just breaking up that silhouette and that strong line that you've got there too. But no, yeah, definite improvement. Hopefully those words give you a bit of stuff to think about. All right, now we got Nihiro 23 BC. I feel like I've talked to this person before. All right, we got Dragon. Sweet. Okay, so it's hard to know if you've modeled that dragon or not. But so let's just talk about the flames and stuff for a bit then. Because actually the first thing I would say is using a slightly colored light, or using two lights, one of slightly yellow from the top and maybe one like slightly blue from the bottom. Just it'll give a bit more depth to the character. And also if this is a reflective character, using a HDRI just to get some interesting shadows and reflections going on. It also seems like as soon as the flame comes on, a shadow appears. So I'd probably be turning off any sort of shadow causing that this does, or just looking into how it's affecting your lights. I do really like where you've chosen to place the flames. I think that it's quite a nice shape and stuff coming out. And probably look into motion blur as well if you haven't. It looks sort of like it's got a bit of motion blur on it, but maybe just looking into that. Also looking into bloom so that the flames give a bit more shine to them, and possibly too looking into adding a point light or something in the in here in the bulk of the fire, so it adds a little bit more of light to the dragon's face, a whole lot more. Now let's just watch it through again. Yeah, and I feel like the resolution of the fire is a bit low. It's also cutting through the jaw a little bit there too. So possibly adding a little bit more detail to the fire. But yeah, no, that's a really nice start. Maybe also just giving a little bit more room for the dragon's head in the scene, just a little bit more, so we can maybe see where this little spine is. But I know that this is probably just an experiment and just working on it, but still try and get into a good practice of composing your images, even in practice, just to like keep that eye up with making sure that you compose stuff right. But nice. All right, now we've got JP513 feedback version 2. So this is a person I saw in one of my last videos. Yep, so they added a bit of a jump, a bit of a pause at the top as they're curving, and then some nice stretch and squish as they bounce at the end there. So it's definitely added a whole lot more to it. I would even consider maybe adding a slight bit of stretch around, like in the arm and stuff here when it's coming around. But it's definitely getting improvement. Definitely still look into rendering the animation out rather than just recording it through the viewport. And there is a sort of pause in midair before you've grabbed onto the cube, so trying to get that consistent and looking realistic. See, because yeah, if you see that there, just when it gets up here, it slows down in midair, and we don't want that. We want it to go boom, and then it grabs on, maybe swings about, and then through. So like, you'll have to learn a bit about physics and movement and stuff with this, but it'd be like bounce, bounce, jump up, and then grab on and swing, and then down in yeah, it's sort of hard to explain, but now you're going to have to look into the physics of it rather than just making it functional. You'll need to figure out how these movements actually work, and thinking about forces and stuff too. But it's definitely an improvement. I'd keep looking into lighting as well, just a little bit, as you work on your renders and composition. Definitely try and still maintain that that sense of quality lighting and composition with your pieces. But it's definitely improved. There's there's still just a few little things that you'll need to work on with this, like just how sometimes the keyframing doesn't fully connect and everything too. But what I would even probably recommend is starting a new project with this model, with that, but no animation, and just trying to recreate the animation from scratch again, and thinking about the force of where this ball is going to go, and thinking more about this following it, and stretching a little bit here and there. So bouncing up by using the tail, and then a slight stretch here, and then pulling back as it swings down and then projects itself out, and then tries to realign itself down on the cube. But yeah, it's trying to imagine that and then animating it. It's quite a difficult task, but you've definitely improved so far in just that small amount of time. Now we've got I don't have an account A. This is my first ever remotely respectable renderer I've ever made. Not very good, I know. Any comments? Well, you know, you all got to start somewhere, and it's not too bad. I can tell you things that you're doing that other people aren't doing, that have been doing it for ages. So you're using 2 lights at least, it seems, which is always nice, and probably slightly colored too, I think, which can really add a whole lot more depth to the scene. I would say that maybe just looking into the direction and stuff that you're using for the lights. But the main thing I would say to improve this model is to add a bit more of a bevel around these harsher edges here. It'll just be able to smooth out the model a little bit more, and it'll catch the light a little bit more on those edges. Also look into adding a HDRI around to help with the reflections, as this is quite simple, and probably reflecting more the lights that you've been using, rather than you can have like a realistic scene. I do like the sort of the reflection and stuff. Maybe just soften it up a little bit, as it's becoming a bit distracting with the actual, like, the knuckle duster that you got there. You can probably even crop it in a little bit more, so it's just a little bit tighter to the actual model. So I'm maybe just going to try this, just so we have a bit more focus on what the actual model is, rather than that extra area around on the outside. I'd also look into a bloom too, just to give a bit more shine to some of these little highlights in here too, and possibly upping the lighting resolution, because I feel like this isn't a texture that you've got here, and just looking into the resolution of the lights and the sort of render settings, just to smooth all this area out. But no, it's definitely nice. You're getting there with your stuff. Maybe also looking into the coloring and stuff that you're using of your materials. And so I'd start to look into giving just this a nice shiny material with a HDRI, and you'll be surprised how quickly it'll look really nice. And probably then even changing this ground to like a nice black or something, or dark blue or something like that. Even a bright red can be nice too, just to make it pop a little bit more, and look into color theory. Because if I was to maybe up the saturation a little bit, and then change it here. Look, it does look a bit trippy now, but just making a slight adjustments to the colors can really make a difference with everything. Like, just to give you some quick ideas about where you could go with this and try and improve it and stuff like that. But no, nice work. Honestly, you shouldn't be too hard on yourself. It's early days. Okay, what can I do? Okay, we got consideration. Okay, 771. What can I do to make my abstract renders better? So let's just zoom in on this because you've got a whole lot of them here. First thing I would say is looking into your composition a little bit more. You could probably have this a little bit tighter, focusing on the main objects here. You could still have a lot of breathing room because there's a lot of interesting parts on the ground here, but just thinking about where you place your objects, as well as using colored lights just a little bit more, especially if you're going into like that sort of psychedelic abstract look. Use of colored lights can really add some interesting dynamics and stuff to the scene, as well as putting in depth of field effects, which will give it a bit more realism, which can make it a bit more interesting and abstract in that sense. Even a vignette to draw the attention inwards a bit more can be interesting, using even a colored vignette like a purple or a blue to drag your attention in, using a bit of bloom to show those highlights and stuff of the lighter areas. Now I'm just going to go through and see if there's anything else. And yeah, possibly also the use of textures too. Maybe trying to make them maybe a little bit less intense, like looking into subtlety and stuff with some of these areas. Looking into ambient occlusion to soften some of the corners that you've got going on here, or adding little trims just to smooth it out a little bit more. But I do like the use of reflections. And possibly also the placement of your lights, just to emphasize and enhance the models that you've got. But mostly for this piece, I'd probably move the colored part over onto this side just a little bit more. Same thing, yeah, probably using a HDRI, especially if we're using the reflective materials, to add a bit more of an interesting reflection to it, rather than just the simple white lights that you've got there. Definitely look into using colored lights. Make sure that your models and stuff too have nice flow and nice amount of polygons, so that we can make sure that it smooths all the way out. And probably even looking into putting it into post-production, like, or post-processing software to edit just the colors and stuff a little bit more, so that you can get a nice like interesting render right at the end there, just to adjust some things, and just so you can have it a bit more intense. Maybe for this one I'd probably crop it a little bit tighter, just like that. Boom. And so now we've got a bit more focus on the actual like models that you've got there. Just to flip through, yeah, maybe adding some bevels as well onto these harsher edges here, which can catch the light a little bit more. But nice use of materials and stuff that you've got going on. And yeah, just looking into composition with some of these models. I feel like I've said everything so far as I'm going through here, of stuff that you'll need to look into, just so that you've got it in your back pocket. But yeah, hopefully that helps give you some cool directions and stuff to look into with everything. Nice work. Now I've got professional scene 5, laptop cycles render. What do you think? So open it up, let's have a look. So I would just say it's a little bit too dark. So I would go in here. So with your lights, just brightening it up just that little bit more. It looks like possibly you've used a colored light, but I'm not exactly sure. So look into using like maybe 1 or 2 lights to light the scene from 2 different angles, and using slight colors just to add a little bit more depth to it. In terms of the model, possibly adding a bit more of a bevel to some of these edges, even just a minor one, and it'll give it a bit more shape, and be able to catch the light in more interesting ways. If you've got the reflective sort of material, using a HDRI in the background to catch some more interesting reflections, as well as adding a little bit more bloom, so this area here will shine light a little bit more. And definitely, like, you've got a nice nice model here, nice little interesting like lights and stuff, using emission and everything too. Possibly consider a really small texture, maybe of some minor scratches, or that brushed metal look. And I do like the use of text and stuff on here too. Maybe even consider writing it yourself and then scanning it in and drawing it on there, so then it can be like more realistic, but it depends on where you want to go with that. Looking into depth of field too, just so you can get some nice blurs on the things that are a bit more in the distance. And in terms of composition, maybe just making it a little bit shorter in that sort of sense, but giving it a little bit more breathing room onto the side here. So if I just add in something like that, just a little bit more, like where we have a bit more room over what would be like its face in a way, like wherever it's looking, give it a bit more room on that side, and it can be a bit tighter on the other side, and a bit more room on the top. And you can probably cut off a little bit on the bottom there as well, just so it's composed just a little bit nicer. But yeah, that's really good. You should be really happy with this model. It's going nice. Now we've got path, metal, work in progress. Recreated a frame from Harry Potter. I modeled everything from scratch in Blender and textured in Substance Painter. Painter needs suggestions. Okay, so we've got, I would assume that this is the picture from the movie, and then this is the render and stuff that you've made. So I'm not going to look at that picture so much. I'm just going to try and look at the original sort of render. Now first, in terms of composition as well, I'll just open this up again, sorry, where this would have been in probably a video or a moving picture. So their composition is going to be a bit different to what you've got in here. Just because there's different balances as well of light and dark. If you just, if I just sort of get this, just so you can have a bit of an understanding about when they've got that sort of light and dark look, that's when people are talking about composition, that's the sort of stuff that they mean, where it's got that light and dark, but also usually the colors too can make a big influence to it. But so if you sort of have a look at this, we've got black on this edge, black on this edge, and then there's sort of like a nice curve shape here where we've got the black line coming down here, bit of black there, and then the sort of white continues it with a black dot up here. And then the sort of black pillar right in the middle, which is where the character is. So now when we look back, it's sort of the same thing. We've got the darkness on the side there, darkness on the side there, dark line here, and it's sort of with that white from the window too, creates a nice bit of a curve like surrounding the main character here, which the people want to be our focus. Now with you, you are sort of missing some of those elements. So you've got the black on the side here, the black down the bottom, definitely got the white here. But then this white here is now taking our attention away. I sort of see these as like, it's an exit point for the image. You want all the edges of the image to draw the person back in. So I would probably open up this door, or even have this as like, say, a darker colored door, like a darker gray or a dark blue, but that probably wouldn't fit in well with the actual image that you're going for. But so I would look into maybe darkening this up, maybe even putting like, you know how people hang off like coats and stuff from their door. So that'd be something I'd look into. And then maybe looking into, to balance it out, putting something light in the middle here, maybe adding some curtains in there too to break up that quite white box. So those would be some things I'd be thinking about at the moment in terms of composing the image, because that should determine what you actually place in the image rather than just putting in things that are realistic in there. Now if we zoom in, I'd probably add in some more like, I'd look at these pillows a little bit more, maybe adding some ruffles and stuff. They are quite boxy, like marshmallowy. and they don't really sit very well down and like deep and have a bit of weight. They look quite light. But I do like the sort of rug, like blanket that you've got here. I like the models that you've got here too, and the textures and stuff that you've been using. And I would probably use it looks like you're using a slightly colored light, but maybe just making the light a little bit more colored, just to breathe a little bit more life into this room. And looking into maybe some more texturing, like the materials of these lamps, so the colors shine through just a little bit more. And maybe adding a bit more color to these books over here, just to give it a bit more interest and stuff. Nice chair model that you've got, maybe just giving it a bit more roughness on the actual seat there, so there's not that big whiter line there. Looking into your render settings to use some more anti-aliasing, so then this smooths out just that little bit more. Nice lounge model, and again, yeah, just adding some colors into this sort of stuff here. I'm assuming too that this maybe is a HDRI, or it could just be an image, but probably looking into how you've been putting this image in the background here, just so it doesn't look way too overexposed. Because if we look at, say, this image here, it's just more a shadowy sort of look, where this, it sort of drags your attention away from everything because it's so bright. So I would try and cover this area up, maybe putting like a little laptop or something on there, computer, plants, you know, like pencils and stuff too, as well as like curtains and stuff on there, just to break up that big box there. Yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say about this so far. But no, yeah, it's definitely looking really nice. There's just a lot of little things that you can look into with this. Hopefully that gives you some good direction with it all. Now I've got Waffle L Flow, modern problems require modern solutions, deleting the default cube. Okay, so let's have a look. Awesome. Okay, so we've got some nice motion blur. I think we've got a nice use of bloom. I feel like the it should be also just on this edge here too, but that's just me. Like, I do like the composition. You could probably put the camera up just slightly, so there's a little bit less room down the bottom and more room up the top, especially with how the materials and stuff fly up into the air. What else could you do? I really reckon you could turn this into a loop by maybe having these disintegrate just a little bit more, and maybe mesh into the ground, and then just having a cube falling down right in the middle, so then it can re-loop back to the start. And yeah, so also there's a flaw here where if you can spot it just after the red hits, so the next frame after this, there's going to be a flash on the ground here. And yeah, so it's just looking into that there. So yeah, so I would assume maybe it's because the light that you used to flow down has probably just hit the plane on the ground and is causing this strange effect. Just something to look into, just so it's nice and smooth completely. But no, really nice render, really awesome stuff. Just a few minor things to make it a bit smoother and a bit just adding a little bit more to it, but awesome work. Right, now we've got Rex Blade 17, the keyboard for my gaming setup project. Okay, so nice. We've got a nice UV map, it seems. It seems like actually though that you've done projecting from view or something like that, which is why we're getting these strong straight lines down the edges here. And where this here is here, where you've just had the hint going across there. and then now it's caused big lines down there. I'd be just looking into how you're building a UV map, just so that you can make it a bit smoother, adding a little bit extra details and stuff there, which can really add to it. I'd also add a bevel around the harsh lines here, which is sort of done with the keys here. I don't think you have actually. I think it's just the reflection. But just adding a bevel so that it can catch the light a bit nicer, and make it a bit smoother. And I do really like the lighting and stuff that you've used in the background. I would add bloom just to make it shine just a little bit more, and making it a bit brighter. I would probably as well maybe light it up just a little bit more, just so that it pops out just a tad more, just from that background. And yeah, that's probably what I'm going to say with that. Maybe just getting looking into the composition a bit more. It could be like maybe just a tad tighter with the crop. But honestly, yeah, no, that's really good. Maybe also so just checking that out. Also using a bit more of an intense light and with maybe a slight color too, and using two lights from two separate directions, just giving it a bit more intensity and stuff with everything, and a bit more form if there's two separate lights. But nice, doing good. All right, then we've got Crazy for Anime. This is my attempt to make Shang-Chi's ring. Of course, the pattern is not the same because I couldn't find it anywhere. Appreciate any feedback I can get. Awesome. Okay. So really nice. It looks like you've got a bit of bloom and stuff on the side there, and looks like possibly have got a HDRI to get some nice reflections, maybe. I'd look into how this is being warped, so just adjusting your UV maps a little bit more to smooth this out, but I really like your use of the textures there. I would look into having two lights lighting this up from slightly different angles, so using one that's slightly yellow and one slightly blue, just to fill up both sides. It'll add a bit more depth and like roundness to the image. Again, yeah, looking into your UV maps or maybe even just your reflections, so that there's not so much stretching and stuff that's going around here. Consider also using depth of field too, just to blur the back slightly. It'll give a better sense of scale to it. As well as with composition, probably just cutting the bottom area off just a little bit more, just so it's a little bit tighter around this ring. And maybe also considering adding a bit more detail into the background by putting it into a scene, or maybe just having a bit more color to it. But I feel like because of the nature of the object that you got here, you don't need to adjust the background so much. Just stuff to think about with that. Hopefully that gives you some stuff to consider, but no, nice work. Alright, now we've got Ray Curie 123, Bardock, the father of Goku, Blender Cycle, Substance Painter, and Daz. Awesome. I love Daz. It's good shot. It's good stuff. Okay, so first thing is generally nice composition. I would just say to use colored light and use two lights. So at the moment you've got what they call the key light, but then also use a secondary light on this side, which will be about half the intensity of this one, and probably like the complementary color of this key light. So if we add a bit more of a yellow to this, and I will just try and do this in the post-production, sort of post-processing stuff. I'm gonna put it on here, just making it a bit subtle. It's just gonna, so this is with the yellow light, that's without. It'll just breathe a little bit more life into it. And then I would also use maybe a blue or even a green just in the edges here, just to catch that extra side. And then also to make it 3-point lighting, I would have a light behind that would be heaps intense, that will just capture the edge of the model, and they call that a rim light, just so it can get the rim, or they sometimes call it a hair light, I think, just to capture the edge of the hair too. Now, maybe just making this green just a little bit more see-through, just so we can see the eye or something like that. Maybe just looking into the material that you've used for that. It's definitely quite nice with like the hair and the materials and stuff that you're using. It's a really nice model that you've got. I'm not sure if you've modeled this or not, because I know Daz has got some pretty insane stuff going on. I would say maybe just the lack of texture in this area could be improved, just making it a bit more rougher here, but I feel like that's because of the depth of field too that you might be going on. And in terms of lighting too, maybe just position the lighting so that this can be lit up just a little bit more and making it a bit more pronounced. Yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say for that at the moment. Oh, also adding just the slightest bit of bloom too, just to make it a bit shinier and like the light shine a bit more in there. But like so far it's amazing. You could have probably modeled this. I shouldn't assume that you didn't, but also looking into how you're putting these scars in too, maybe just looking into a bit more into the details of how scars can form and heal and how they can look, just to add a bit more realism and stuff into it. So far that's pretty good, especially like when it's from far away and stuff too. It's a really nice model that you got, and a nice render, but definitely just look into the use of colored lights and into bloom and some of the details. Oh, wrong one. Okay, so then we've got Give Me the Soy, just having some fun with the cloth simulation reflections. Let's give you some quick feedback because you are asking for it. And now we've got, like, composition seems really nice. Could maybe crop it a little bit closer, but with the nature of this scene, it's pretty good. Really nice amount of light. I think that you are using, the colored, like, yellow light, which I think really does add some life to the scene, as well as adding in all these strange reflections around here too. Really adds to it. Maybe just looking into the resolution so that we can minimize the grain and stuff a little bit more into the shot. This sculpture does seem really nice too. Maybe it's just a slightly lower resolution for the texture that you've got, so maybe just look into some minor adjustments for that. I really like the material that you've used on this cloth. It's got that nice sort of sheen look. Maybe just looking into how you've formed the edges just to make them maybe a bit sharper or a bit more textured. I would also, I think you've got bloom in here, but also maybe, I'm not sure if you've used a HDRI. It looks like you probably have. But yeah, just looking into how you're using your reflective materials and stuff to add those extra details in. Probably look into depth of field too, just to blur out some of the background areas. Maybe even using a slight bevel on some of these lines just to give them a better transition and make them catch the light in a bit more like interesting or different ways. I think the composition could be like a bit tighter. So sorry, where is it? Let's copy that image. Control Shift C. Let's just discard that and see. Oh, all right. Let's paste this. Paste this new image. All right, there we go. So I'd maybe just. I feel like it does have a lot of room over the top of it, but that this is just me. Composition can change depending on what you're trying to do and stuff. Oh, there we go. We'll copy at once. Okay. So it depends on where you want to go and your type of eye with it too. But I'm just trying to balance the amount of darks and lights and stuff so that our eye is balanced with this model here. But we could do it in a slightly different way where it's a bit more off center too, and it could give a bit of a different look. But yeah, it's just something to look into about how you compose that image just a bit more to give it a bit more of a different feel. And also considering using two lights so that you can light up this other side of the model a little bit more with a different color, and it'll give a bit more depth. But no, yeah, nice work. You're doing good stuff. Okay, and then we've got Ochizik, I think, and I'd appreciate some feedback on this. So we've got this one and this one. I think this is probably either like edited in post. So let's just look at this one because that's probably your second one that you wanted to look into maybe. Alright, so I do like the use of depth of field and stuff that you've got going on here. It seems like, yeah, quite a nice composition. I think these are like, it's a rib cage coming out of the ground. I would just be looking into using two light sources. So we've got this sort of, I think, lantern here, and then you can add in a second light coming on across this way, which would be like a blue color, just to fill in some of these shadowy areas around here. I like the use of bloom, but also look into using motion blur too to smooth out some of this rain. And I would look into the actual shade of color of that light that you're using. I don't feel like that's really the correct color that it should be for that lantern, but that comes down to exploring this sort of details and stuff. I feel like that, yeah, maybe just it's hard to say. Probably just, yeah, looking into the details of this water a little bit more, adding a bit more detail and resolution because it's quite like lumpy and stuff. So if there's lots of rain hitting it, it'd be quite jittery and stuff in there too. But just looking into those, like the realism factor of it at the moment. But yeah, no, at the moment, that's really good. Like, actually, let's copy it and put it in here, and then I'll adjust the color slightly. Yeah, maybe just something like that where it's just a little bit warmer. Let's try it again. If we go in yellow. Yeah, something maybe just a bit more like that. Like if we look at the original one, because I'm assuming that that's a lantern, but yeah, it's just quite a yellow. It would be a little bit red if it was like flame and stuff. But no, you're doing great. This is a really good start to everything, and you've probably learned a lot from this. Alright, then we got that one guy, 0330. Making this as a gift, would love any feedback. Okay. So, yeah, really nice composition. Maybe just giving a little bit more room down the bottom of the feet. But possibly as well using a HDRI a bit more to get a bit more reflections and stuff. I think I don't think you really got a HDRI in here to add those extra details, but so whack one of those in just to give some nicer reflections on the eyes. Using a colored light too, with a slight yellow, will really add a lot more warmth to the scene. And using a slight bit of bloom too will just help a bit more shine to the eye, like, and the lighter sections. And looking into maybe just having a bit more thickness in the normal map here, just so I can capture those bumps and not look as smooth. Also adding a normal map on the ground here too, to just add a few more actual bumps and stuff too. Maybe just making this grass just a bit more thicker to hide the look of that flat look. And go in and adjust some of these bits of grass here around the feet so it's not clipping through the feet. Placing a few more of these rocks around as well, just in the background and maybe near the tree and stuff too, can give a nice sense of depth. I do like your use of depth of field, and maybe just adding a bit more details in the background, like some hills or an extra tree, larger bushes and stuff too. But yeah, no, that's pretty good. Nice work. Hopefully those words help. Here we got W Thomas 666 here for more feedback. So I helped this guy out the other day, but then he said, "Oh, I've already adjusted some stuff." Okay, so let's have a look. So yeah, we've got some nice, interesting background details. We've got some like textures. I think these are like flies or something, which is a nice addition. I would probably just change the angle slightly of the light just to capture a little bit more of this box, as I feel like it's still a bit too in shadow. But and also maybe just the placement of this pillar thing, maybe just getting it away from this big French fry looking thing and just moving it so it's either like between it here or a little bit maybe over behind the mountain, just because I don't really like the long line that it's creating here. I feel like it's a bit too mechanical and too distracting. Like if a photographer was to take that, they probably wouldn't want that to line up. But you've got a nice depth of field going on. I would probably just add in a little bit of bloom so that those white areas are caught a little bit more, like they're a bit shinier and stuff. Maybe depending on the material that this is, looking into like subsurface scattering and stuff too. But yeah, no, like that's definitely nicer than what it was before. Maybe this is just a little bit too close to the edge of the image, so just moving it over just a tad, just to give it a little bit more room around the edge there. And yeah, and like I said before, they've got the reflective bushes here, like it's mirror image, so just avoiding that. Maybe even adding a bush just behind this box here too, so it's peeking out. It'll just give a nice amount of depth and stuff into the scene. But yeah, no, nice work. Really good. Definitely an improvement since the last one. All right, now we've got Real Dim Fury. Made this a while ago for fun. Would love feedback. Okay, nice. So, quite a nice composition. Maybe you could just tighten it up a little bit by cutting out the top and bottom section just slightly, just to get a little bit of stuff off. But I really like the reflections that you've got. Like the color choices, like the silhouette that you've got here. Maybe just moving them up a tad so we can see just the slightest bit under the leg, and it can give some separation from this black line here. Looks like they may be like slightly robotic too, so do consider maybe adding a light coming from an angle just to give them a little bit of a shape to help get those details come out, but that's sort of up to you. Consider also adding a little bit of bloom just to make some of these areas shine a little bit more if you haven't already, and upping the resolution of some of your lighting or reflection just so it's not as grainy on everything. I think that's all I'm going to really say about this. You've got like a really nice, quite simple sort of image here that you can work with. And yeah, maybe just looking around into different positions for this character to stand in, different placements and stuff too. Like close, far away, standing, hands up and down, like stuff like that. But yeah, no, that's really nice. Okay, and then we've got Blackie Green, Low Poly Kitchen. How can I make this better? Thanks in advance. Okay, so A nice use of color. I think we've got two lights going on here, which is really nice. First thing I would say is probably just consider adding some color into this, but I think you already know that. I'd look into how these floorboards are being built. I don't think normally they'd have the two for every one sort of thing, but you can just look into that a little bit more yourself. Just thought I'd bring that up. I'm not sure if you have or not, but adding a bevel onto these edges can just make it catch the light a little bit more. I know it's low poly, but it's hard to know sometimes if people are going for the look of low poly or the actual low poly. Making sure as well this part of the seat does connect in and continues up into the chair. It's hard to tell, but it looks like there's it's not completely there. Maybe I could be wrong though. I would probably just heighten up the brightness of this a little bit more, and then because of that I'll make the colors just a little bit more intense. And in terms of composition too, I would probably crop it a whole lot tighter. Just now it's like it sort of feels just a bit like it's actually focused on what's in the scene that we need to focus on. Maybe looking into your field of view too, to give it a bit of a different sense of scale. Looking into depth of field so that we can have a nice blur maybe on some certain areas. And thinking about what you actually want the focus of the scene to be. So maybe not having it so flush up against the wall, but just moving the camera like slightly out to the side and then rotating it so we have a bit more dimension to the scene rather than it being so flat. And then for the second piece, which you sort of got here, where yeah, you've I think looked into the field of view a little bit more, but I'd probably be looking into doing it sort of halfway between this camera angle and the last one. And I would say your composition is maybe a bit too tight on the top and not tight enough down the bottom. And just give it a little bit more room. And again, probably just adjusting the brightness. And so then we can have a bit more contrast. Using two colored lights just to give it a bit more more depth. Maybe just it's going to be the slight adjustments in color and stuff too that'll go from your eye. And I'm not sure if that was intentional there, just looking into that, like looking into those sections there. Yeah, I feel like I've said everything that I can really say for this piece, I think. It's just looking into those little subtle things now. Yeah, hopefully that helps and gives you some direction. Okay, now we've got C7X Man created a Dark Souls vibe in Cycles. Close to 2 weeks in learning, I attempted to create a Dark Souls-esque vibe, but did not do the major modelling such as the hooded figure on the bonfire. This was primarily to do something not related to a tutorial and show myself I don't always need to have a hand held to figure out certain problems. Did a larger portion of the materials myself, excluding the bonfire, the ruins, the cliffs were all Quixel mega scans. Credit to that person for the hooded statue model and useless Viking for the bonfire. I'd appreciate any feedback that could be given, although I'd realise most of the work isn't really mine. Okay, well I'll tell you the stuff that is yours and then let's improve it. Alright, so first things first, it's quite dark. So that's something that you can improve, is lighting. And so I'm just going to go into curves and see, yeah, all right. So I had to really brighten that up to see what was going on, and then that's going to affect the light. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's really dark, like, you know. So I would just brighten it up a whole lot more. And in terms of composition too, it's quite okay for composition, but there's not heaps going on in the water there. So I would probably just crop that back And so now we've got the focus on everything. But I would also say that if you feel in your eyes, if this was like on a scale and we put a point right in the middle here and then it was going to fall a certain way, this hooded figure would make it fall all the way over here. So what we need to do is just take off a little bit of the weight of this side and then try and balance it up a little bit more. So now by taking off a little bit here, we've got a little bit more weight over here. And I'm going to even just take off another little tiny slither there. Now I feel like that's just a little bit too much. So let's do that again. Yeah, look, it's hard to get it perfect, but I feel like that's just a little bit more composed now. If we backtrack, like, I think, yeah, if I was just to go just the tiniest little bit there, yeah, I feel like that's nice and composed now. It's just those little subtle things that not many people will realize when it's wrong until, but they will feel that it is and won't know how to change it. So it's something to look into with that. And so now you might not have made the models, but it's looking into stuff like adding bloom and everything, adding these rendering effects. So to make things shine a little bit more, and look into the rendering settings of the lights so they smooth out the lines a little bit more, and using depth of field, so the areas closest to us are a little bit blurred, and then there's the background that's a bit blurred too. Possibly even adding some fog and stuff into the background too to darken things up that are in the distance. But yeah, hopefully that helps with everything going on. But nice. Okay, then we've got official CD Crows. I'm attempting to recreate my bedroom. Would love some feedback. Okay, so let's just look at the colored one that we've got here. So it's quite a tight composition that you've got. I'd just be backing the camera out a little bit more, just so we've got a bit more room above these like slots here, and then just giving a bit more breathing room around the focus, which would be the table that you've got here. Now I like the floor that you've got. I like the color choice in lights. The direction of the light. I feel like you can add some color though to the light by adding just a slight yellow or whatever the main light is in your room, because that'll give it a bit more like honesty and stuff and warmth. But you might have one of those like whiter lights, but remember that they're not actually white, they're slightly blue. So it's just adding that slight color into it will give it a bit more realism. And now I feel like the thing that takes away from this picture the most is the bed, which is usually pretty hard, but it's just making it have maybe a little bit more resolution or a little bit more of realistic folds and stuff in there too. So I'd just be looking in that to really improve this scene the most. But I do like the texture and stuff that you've got on here. I'd be adding a little bit of bloom too to these lighter areas, just so then they shine a little bit more, especially the brighter areas. You've definitely got some nice models and stuff that you've made here, and I think with a slightly colored light you'll make everything tie together a whole lot more. And I think you've also used possibly a bit of depth of field too, just to get some blur and stuff. If you haven't already though, but yeah, look into depth of field. I would also consider modeling even taking a photo of the other side of the room so that you can have, at least in the reflections, some realistic reflections going on. I would add a bevel to these harsher edges here, just to make sure we've got something to catch the light and smooth around just that little bit more. Nice use of materials. Probably just looking into some of the finer details of the materials on things here. So making sure that it's reflective and has maybe even just a really subtle normal map, like a brushed metal, or slight imperfections like hand smudges and stuff too. But yeah, no, that's like, it's going really good. Yeah, I really like these speakers and stuff. You've got really nice stuff going on there. All right, hopefully that helps give you some direction with everything. Yeah, you're doing really good. You should be proud with your progress. All right, then we've got the last person, Olho Metro. Hey everyone, I made this using Blender, I guess, inspired from a YouTube video. Okay, so first thing, I'm just going to brighten this up just slightly. Just because I feel like it's a little bit dark, and because of the types of colors and stuff that are in here, we want it to be nice and bright and grand and stuff. And so first of all, I really like the depth of field that you've got. It's good, it gives a nice sense of scale. Also, I like the randomness of it. I think it's really nice. You could possibly like just change some of the colors of some of these. Like there's quite a big chunk of green here and a big chunk of blue. Maybe just adjusting some of them so it composes a bit nicer. I don't feel like it's as completely balanced as what it could be. Also maybe looking into some of these pieces, like making this piece fall. Maybe one of these pieces fall, just because there's a very low chance that they would have fallen and then this landing up like that. Even if it did in real life, it still feels unbelievable, like there's a lower chance. So just looking into that. I'd maybe consider using a vignette around the edges just to even just draw our attention a little bit more into the middle. If you haven't as well, I'd use a colored light, like maybe a slight yellow, and then even from the other direction, another colored light, less intense, and maybe of like a slight blue, just to give all the forms a little bit more extra detail. And if these are reflective, I'd be putting a HDRI map inside, just so they reflect maybe the inside of a room or something like that. So it's just a bit more realistic in the model. And I'd be adding in some bloom too, so that it has a bit more of a shine around these lighter edges. And looking into the resolution of your depth of field, just so it blurs just that little bit nicer. Or you can do that in post a little bit more. But yeah, no, it's a really nice like render that you've got. Hopefully the things that I said give you a bit more of a direction of stuff to explore with your future renders. All right, and that's the last video for everybody. Hopefully that helped people, and hopefully, yeah, I can see better renders and stuff in the future. Thanks everybody. Bye.